If you have followed all the accounts, saved all the reels, tried all the communication scripts, and things still feel impossibly hard in your stepmom life, this video is going to tell you why. And no, it is not because you're doing it wrong. Welcome to Stepfamily Unfiltered. I'm Cameron, and I help stepmoms stop surviving and start leading their lives with clarity and confidence. I also train and certify stepfamily coaches through the Stepfamily Coach Academy, because this work matters and there are not nearly enough people out there who actually get what stepfamilies need. So here is what I want you to know right away. Most stepmoms aren't failing. They are following advice that was not designed for the reality of blended families. And I think you probably know what I'm talking about, right? So if you've been on Instagram and you've seen the graphic that says just love them like your own, or even worse, the comments that say, why did you get into this if you weren't prepared to love them like your own? The therapy session where you're told to communicate better. The well-meaning friend who says, well, you knew he had kids when you married him. And yes, that has happened to me too. And you try all these things. You really do. But whatever you're doing doesn't land, or worse, it backfires. And then you're left wondering why you can't make this work. Is there something wrong with you? Okay, spoiler alert. No, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not the problem. The advice that you have been given was not built for stepfamilies. And in the next video, I'm actually going to go deeper into what no one else has told you about your stepmom role and why it does feel so hard. So make sure you keep watching after this video. But first, let's talk about why so much of the advice out there just doesn't work. And trust me, once you see this, you cannot unsee it. Most parenting advice, and honestly, most relationship advice, is built on the assumption that you are starting out from scratch together. You meet your partner, you fall in love, you decide to have kids, you build a family unit from the ground up. That's what we heard as kids, right? That's the fairy tale. But that may not be your story, right? If you're here, it's probably not. You walked into a system that was already formed. Your partner has a history with someone else. The kids have loyalties, routines, and a whole life that existed before you showed up. There may be an ex in the picture, maybe cooperative, maybe high conflict, but either way, they are there. And yet, the advice that you are getting assumes that you have the same authority, the same emotional access, and the same starting point as your biological parent partner. You don't. Newsflash. And pretending that you do, that's where the frustration starts. And here's what I mean. You set a bedtime rule and the kids say, Mom doesn't make us do that. Have you ever heard that before? Because I sure have. Mom doesn't make us do that at her house. You suggest a family vacation and your partner's ex schedule controls everything and you can't go. You want to be involved in school stuff, but you are not sure if you are allowed to be there or if you should be there, right? That is not a you problem. That is a system problem. Okay. So let's talk about power dynamics for a second, because this is where things get really messy in the stepfamily system. This is the piece that most advice you find online completely ignores. In a nuclear family, in a family of origin, a first family, whatever you want to call it, the adults typically share power sort of equally, right? Like they're making decisions together. They're both in charge. But in a step family, the power dynamics are all over the place. Your partner has history, legal rights, and an established role. The ex, especially if they're high conflict, may be wielding some power from outside your home. They may be dictating schedules, undermining decisions that you guys make, creating chaos that you then have to manage. What are you doing? You're doing the work of parenting, right? You may be doing all the meals. You may be doing the rides. You're doing the emotional labor, but you're not getting the authority that comes with it. And the authority that comes with it isn't inherent in your role, right? When you join this pre-existing family unit, you don't have that authority. So when you try to set a boundary or have a say in how things are run, and it gets dismissed or overruled, or the kids don't want to do it, like that is not a communication problem. That's a power problem. And most advice completely skips over that reality. They will tell you to just talk it out. They don't address the fact that the playing field isn't level to begin with. You can have the perfect script, the calmest tone, the most logical argument, and it still won't work if the power dynamics have not been addressed. And here's the big one. And honestly, if you only remember one thing from this video, let it be this. Nobody defines your role as a stepmom. Are you a parent? Are you a friend, an aunt, a teacher, a supportive adult, the enforcer, the fun one, the one who stays out of it? The truth is, your role is probably pretty unclear to you, maybe to your partner, to the kids, and maybe even the ex. And when your role isn't clear, every decision becomes a minefield. Should you discipline? Should you stay quiet? Do you go to the school event? Do you go to the parent-teacher conferences? Or do you stay home to keep the peace? You constantly second guess yourself because you're trying to succeed at a role that was never actually defined. And so here's what happens. You either overfunction, stepping in everywhere, trying to prove your worth, exhausting yourself, or you underfunction. You pull back so much that you feel like a ghost in your own home. Does any of that sound familiar? Because it sure does to me. Most advice is going to give you a script and a strategy without helping you figure out what role you're actually playing. And that's why it doesn't stick, right? It's treating the emotions as the problem instead of the information. Okay, last one. And this one gets me fired up. The way that most advice online handles your feelings. You are told to let it go. You are told to not take it personally, focus on the positive. And yes, emotional regulation matters. Keeping a respectful home matters. You shouldn't be asking stepkids to treat you with respect if you're not going to treat them with respect, right? But your emotions are not the problem here. They're information. If you feel invisible, that's telling you something about your role in the family system. That is information, right? If you feel resentful, that's telling you something about boundaries and workload. If you feel like the bad guy, that's telling you something about how discipline and authority are being handled. If you feel guilty taking care of yourself, which I just was talking to some stepmoms about earlier today, that's telling you something, right? Your emotions are signals. And when the advice that you find online dismisses them or tells you to just manage them better or just take a step back, and what it's doing is asking you to turn the alarm off instead of actually addressing the fire. So what I want you to do instead, okay, start listening to what your emotions are trying to tell you. Stop feeling guilty for your emotions and start listening to them, because they are not the enemy. They are a roadmap. Okay, so I've spent a little bit telling you why a lot of the advice out there doesn't work. So let's talk about what does work, what does help. I want to break it down because there is a lot out there that really does work. And we're going to put a lot of videos on this channel for you about what does work. All right, so here's where things are going to get good. Let's talk about roles and boundaries. You cannot set effective boundaries if your role isn't clear, period. So before you try to enforce a rule or have a hard conversation, you and your partner need to get on the same page about what your role actually is. Are you a co-parent? Are you a supportive adult? Somewhere in between, which may be where a lot of people fall, right? But here's the thing, that answer could be different depending on the age of the kids, the dynamic with the ex, and what your household needs right now. And the answer could be different for each kid, right? None of this is simple stuff. It's all complicated. But once your role is clear, then boundaries become so much easier because you're not overguessing. You're not over explaining. You are operating from a place of clarity, and that changes everything. So I want to talk about the concept of leadership as stepmoms. And this is huge for both stepmoms and for aspiring coaches. If you're thinking that, you might want to help other stepmoms and you're watching this. Most advice teaches you to react better, be calmer, use this script, try this technique. And yes, that can all help in the moment, but it's not sustainable. So what actually works? Learning to lead. That means regulating your own emotional state before you try to manage anyone else's. It means knowing what you stand for, what your non-negotiables are, and how you want to show up, even when everything around you is chaos. Leadership is not about being perfect, and neither is being a stepmom, right? Leadership is about being grounded. And when you lead from that place, the whole system starts to shift. So scripts are helpful. I use them with my clients all the time. But if all you have is a script and no framework for why you're saying it or when to use it, it's going to fall flat. So frameworks are also important. You need to understand the why behind the strategy. You need to see the bigger picture, right? The power dynamics, the role clarity, the emotional patterns, so that you can make decisions that actually fit your unique situation. There's not a one size fits all blueprint. There's just not. And this is all what I teach inside my Stepfamily Coach Academy. It is not just say this. It's here's how to think like a coach so you can navigate any situation with confidence. And the last thing that does actually help is finding support that gets it, not surface level advice, not someone who is going to tell you just love them like your own, like you see in all the comments section, not someone who's going to say that and call it a day. You need people who understand the research, people who've lived this, and people who can hold space for the real challenges that you're facing. People who aren't going to sugarcoat it or make you feel like you're failing. And that's what I've built here in Stepfamily Solutions with this channel, on my podcast, on my courses, transformation, right? But whether you're getting support from me or from someone else, the most important thing you can do is make sure your coaches and therapists understand stepfamily life, that they understand what the research says. There is some great research out there to guide us, but it can't help us if we don't know about it. And if your helper doesn't know about it. And all too often, people come to me after having seen a therapist that doesn't understand stepfamily life, because the strategies to deal with stepfamily life are so different than they are for first families. So whoever you end up finding to help you, make sure that they understand stepfamilies. If something you've heard today has landed for you, you are in the right place. And here's what I want you to do next. First, subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss anything that's coming, because we have a lot we're going to be doing here. We are just getting started. And second, watch the next video. We're going to talk all about what no one else has told you about your stepmom role and why it feels so hard. And that's where we're going to go deeper into that role clarity, why it's so confusing, and what changes when you actually get clear on your role. And honestly, it might be the most important video that we're kicking off this YouTube channel with. So if you are someone who is not just here for yourself and you're thinking, I've been through this, I think I might be meant to help other stepmoms with my experience, then stick around, because this channel is for you too. I am going to be sharing coaching case studies. We're going to be talking about what ethical stepfamily coaching looks like and showing you what it takes to turn your lived experience into meaningful income, meaningful impact. You do not have to keep doing this alone. You don't have to keep guessing, and you definitely don't have to keep trying advice that was never built for you in the first place. So I'm really glad you're here. Let's do this together. I will see you in the next video.